Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the co-chair of the Progressive Conservative Party's Leadership Convention, Tommy Williams. Good morning, Tommy. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Tommy, of course, a lot in the news. I know you've taken the opportunity and given us the time to speak with Fred on a variety of matters, so I appreciate your time this morning.
No problem. No, my pleasure.
Certainly, I know you made it quite clear with Fred and others that there is no opportunity to reopen the race for anyone new to enter and anyone to re-enter the race, and that's given the time frames and how far along you are in the process, and that's fine. But when we see and read stories and some of the comments made by Mr. Barry about the integrity of the race, I assume that's troubling for you, and it certainly is for many in the electorate. Can you speak to the integrity of the process and the amount of monitoring you do to make sure that there are not little cards passed around and telling who people they should vote for as opposed to letting them make up their own mind, and restricting the room size and restricting the number of people that get in first that are supporting the candidate of choice by some who they call backroom people? How do you monitor that kind of stuff, Tommy?
Well, there's practice and procedures in place, Pat, and I've had an opportunity to read the article in the Telegram today, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we're trying to avoid. Mr. Barry has referenced having small venues and giving out 300 dozen beers as practices he's seen or participated in previous years. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. We have rules in which we follow. We've set out procedures for our district association meetings. But what's being missed here, I think, is that delegate conventions are a process whereby candidates who are in that race try to gather support prior to each of the district meetings, in the sense that if they are looking to have support at the convention, then they will try to have delegates elected who would support them. That is a past practice by not only the PC party, by the Liberal Party when they had delegate conventions, and it's a wide accepted practice of candidates trying to have their supporters elected at district association meetings. Now, Mr. Barry came out very early in the campaign and said that he wasn't going to partake in that practice, although it had been, a past and standing practice, and he was free to do that. So we proceeded with only 5 of probably 48 district association meetings, and he wasn't getting the support, presumably, from the candidates, and then he's decided to withdraw. Now, after he withdraws and he finds he doesn't have support, he wants us to change the rules that have been established by our Constitution, throw out the rule book, and then adopt some, presumably, changes that would favour his campaign, and he'll come back in. And that's just not on. I mean, we have a constitution and we have policies and procedures that we follow, and we've been following them very strictly. And we can't, at the whim of any potential candidate, Mr. Barry or anybody else, just throw out the rule book and say, okay, now what changes would you like to see us make?
The Constitution is an interesting part of this conversation, too, because it says quite clearly that the party will go down the road of the delegated convention. Some parties, federally and provincially, have made the move to the all-inclusive. You register, declare yourself a supporter, and register, and the Liberals, some 20,000 people participated in that. Is that something that the party is going to look at for future selection of leaders and the approach to the Constitution? Because the delegated convention now is starting to fall away for many parties, and it does set yourself up for these sort of condemnations and critique of the process. So are the PCs going to entertain this move to a more open, all-inclusive style of selecting leaders?
I don't know so much if you call it more open and inclusive, in the sense that I think you've seen this change because of the change in technology, okay, with the onset of the internet and all the computer technology that exists that allows people to vote from remote locations. That is obviously a trend that's occurring. As to whether or not we will move to that, I'm sure the party will take it under consideration and have a look at that. What you do need to remember, though, in our circumstance, we were taken, on short notice by Premier Dunderdale, in terms of she had, given notice that she was stepping down. Accordingly, we had Premier Marshall step in, and then we had to move into a leadership process. So to do the conversion from the delegate selection process to the computer-generated election process is very, very involved. And I think the Liberal Party will tell you that they spent an extensive amount of time in doing that. There's a lot of work has to be done in preparation for that. So we would never have been able to try to accommodate that kind of process in the time frame that we had. As to whether or not the party will look at it, I'm not in a position to speak on behalf of the party, but I'm sure they'll give it consideration as to evaluating it. If it's an issue that they'd like to move forward with, they need to put that plan and process in place. Then they have to amend the Constitution Constitution. They may have all the guidelines there. So it is something I'm sure that they will look at, for some point down the road, but that just wasn't available at this particular time.
Your role this time around and in this conversation is as co-chair for the Leadership Convention. I know you've amalgamated the AGM and the convention to give it more sting, given the fact that there's only one person in the race. Part of the issue now for political fortunes, and even in your role here, is the future of the party, and their political success is going to have to be part of not only what's discussed at the AGM, but also attention going forward. And many people have an issue with the unelected position that Mr. Coleman will enjoy, the Premier of the province, without having to face the delegates, which is of course no doing of his own. People withdrew and were dismissed, I understand that. But when it comes to the people's want to send this to a by-election immediately, Tommy, do you think that this is a decision that's unavoidable for the party? Because there's rules in place where he has a year to govern without a position in the House of Assembly, but heading to the polls, is that something that PCs will be pushing? Because it seems like a lot of the electorate are pushing back on that exact issue.
Well, I mean, Mr. Barry has indicated that he has come out due to the fact that it appears that Mr. Coleman has so much support. And I think that's a positive thing. I mean, there's a number of ways you look at this. The fact that Mr. Coleman has garnered so much support, I think, speaks to his credibility and to what people have assessed, his abilities. He will get, in this position in July. The transition, I guess, will be worked out between the Premier's office and his campaign team. And then he will get out and run in a by-election. The Premier's indicated that he will be vacating his seat to allow to run. And then the people of the province, during this whole process, will get a chance to see Frank Coleman, to assess him, and to make some decisions. I don't think, and again, I can't speak. I mean, Mr. Coleman doesn't even have the job yet, so that will be totally within his purview as to when he, wants to call an election. And again, I guess it will depend upon whenever Premier Marshall resigns his seat to when we'll be into a by-election. So, I mean, these things naturally would unfold, and we know that there's going to be an election no later than next July. So we're on a pretty fast track towards an election in any event.
Tommy, the preparedness of all parties is always in conversation. People are quick to point out that the Liberals had not been very organised. In the recent by-election, it seems like they're pulling that together a little bit. They comment on the party's position financially and their ability to conduct a general election province-wide. What's the position of the PC party in the bank?
Well, I mean, again, I'm a leadership coach here, so I'm not a party representative. But, I mean, we feel that we're in very good shape. We're taking this opportunity now that we're not having a contested leadership convention to get the people on the ground in election readiness mode. So, we always knew that there was going to be an election. So, in 2015, or presumably in 2015. So even the change in leadership, the recent events with the convention, the party planning has been in place, and we've been gearing towards an election. So our party is up and running. We're looking forward to, getting a new leader in place so that we can all rally behind him and then get the people on the ground out working towards that general election date.
Because it's coming, and as we all know, in politics, this next 15, 18 months goes in the blink of an eye. Appreciate your time this morning, Tommy.
No problem. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Speak with you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Tommy Williams, co-chair of the PC Leadership Convention.